Greetings all, Ben here from East West. Going to take a look at cannabis. The situation continues to evolve and the trends continue to develop, so exciting times. Let's jump in and see what we can see this week. So we're just starting off here on a weekly chart of MSOS. Right now, this is for those of you who haven't really seen much of what I do. This, of course, is the Ichimoku cloud. Now, I don't particularly use this other than to give me a good idea about time. I like to see price and time get balanced. So what we're seeing here, this big red cloud is indicative of the strength of the move down. Okay, now obviously we don't have a lot of price history with this one. Okay, we're only going back to September 2020, but as we step into some of the other ones, you'll start to see. But what I like to see here is after a long run down like this, once price starts to clear through the weekly cloud, to me it's usually a pretty good signal that enough time has gone by for the market, to digest the sell-off. Okay, so as we've come here and crawled into the bottom, enough time has now gone by that the market is now ready, in my opinion, the way it looks technically, to begin its climb. Okay, that's how I would read the cloud in a timing sense. So when I see anything that breaks, that's been below or above a weekly cloud for a long time, when I see it start to break above or below, that's definitely, for me, that's a sign that there is a trend beginning to develop here that looks like it could develop into something more substantial than what we've seen in the recent past. Now, I've just highlighted the Chiku span, the lagging span. Okay, now the fact that we've come in and that the candles have held the lagging span and now we're pushing away is good. That's a good sign. That's one of the signs from the Ichimoku cloud that you want to see, that the candles provide support for the lagging span. So the lagging span, of course, is nothing more than today's closing price plotted 26 candles back. Okay, so all this really means is that this bit of structure that we form back here has been respected into the future. Okay, so it just means that it's holding its levels. And because this is a weekly and it's such a slow moving thing, the other nice thing we got here is we got a nice, what's called a TK cross. So we got a nice Tenkan-sen, which is the red line, which is like a faster, it's not really a moving average, but it serves the same sort of function, and the blue line here, which is the Kaijin-sen, which is the slower moving line. So the fact that we got that TK crossover, and now we've just teased the top of the cloud, we've come back, we've retested it, and now we just look like we're on the verge of busting through, that is all a good sign. So, if that's not your cup of tea, no problem, because at the very bare nuts and bolts of it, what do we have? We have a nice trend developing. Now, you could probably draw this a couple of different ways. You could draw it like this, but I tend to think, I think I went over this last week, I tend to think the way that this is structured up, it looks better. It looks like it's primed to be a bit steeper than what this trend channel suggests. So I would redraw it and focus on this. This is what I think looks pretty good. Now, of course, we're out here on the weekly, so this is going to take some time, but everything to me, look, it's still tracking the right way. Even just a perfunctory look at the RSI, we double bottomed here. Now, that's a little bit lower than what I like to see. In a bullish market, I like to see 40 being held, but we just did sort of double bottom here. But it's kind of like, we got we bottomed on this one, right? But we've got that sort of, the market's higher than when we bottomed here. I'll just say it like that. And then what we do have, of course, going through this way is a high in the RSI. So all that would suggest to me, just basically, is that the RSI is just telling us that the momentum is starting to gain. Okay, because this is only a measure of momentum. So we're just seeing that momentum is gaining through the market. Now, just moving in here to the daily, and this is still progressing the way that we looked at last week. Okay, so we've had the nice move up, three swing up. We've had a 3 swing back that came right into the nice retracement zone, and came back in. And same thing with what the Ichimoku was suggesting, right? That it just held this area of structure which just lined up. So that's all pretty good. That's a good box to tick. And now, of course, we've gone on a little bit further. So the first thing we had to overcome, of course, was the retracement level of this move coming back down. So we've done that. We've got onto the other side. We paused here briefly for a couple of days. We tried to push back down, but it's still looking pretty damn strong there, I think. So this still all looks pretty good. The fact that we've now defeated that is good. We haven't quite hit the median line yet. I think we probably will next week. Once that medium line is hit, of course, we'll probably get rid of the pitchfork. It's kind of done its job. It's more like a short-term sort of trading plan. If you're going to buy retracements, it's often a good place to maybe just even take some profit or trim position or get out altogether. But it certainly gives some structure to a trading plan. But once that line's hit, I'll probably lose a bit more. My interest will drop away with that. But for right now, just looking at this was as far back as we got. So we didn't have much of any sort of retracement off this move here. So the only thing I'd be wary about, I'd still be looking for at some point the move back before we go on, just so the structure continues to play out. It may not happen. It's just what I'd like to see. So that's what I'd like to see happen. But of course, we may just power on with very small, shallow pullbacks like that. You do see that often. Like I said, it's just what you'd like to see. So we'll just wait and see if that eventuates. But other than that, even though this is a pretty steep rally, so I'd like to see a little bit of digestion, so that, in my opinion, when a market does that, it's more likely to do that. Okay, I like to see. I think I said last week, I like to see building blocks, markets trending higher like that with swings in between. This I don't think this looks unbalanced to me yet. I don't think it's in much danger of a big, I mean, I don't know what will happen next week, but it looks technically like it's not in danger of doing that. I mean, this is the anchored VWAP off the start of the year. Okay, so we've moved above that, which is kind of nice. But the buyers are in control. We're in an uptrend. I mean, this move is pretty steep, which is why I'd kind of, if it was me, I'd just, like I said, I'd be trying to fight the FOMO and trying to wait for the pullback to get on board. That's how I would do it in the short term. If you're sort of looking at this more in a long term, I don't think it particularly matters where you buy it. It's just a matter of where your stop's going to be. And I think I suggested you probably want to be out. If it gets below here, something's gone wrong. That's where you'd want to be out. So, yeah, I mean, I think this still looks great. There's still no reason to change the view. We just wait and see how we play out next week. But that would be what I'd be looking for, just that retracement back, so that we can start the next leg of the rally in a nice, orderly fashion like we got here, down here, that sort of thing continuing on. So just jumping over here to CURLF now, and we're back out here on the weekly, same sort of thing, right? We've got this weekly cloud that that it's been digested now. So what I'm saying is that this sort of movement has started to do enough to break down the timing factor of this. Okay, the market, it's like the deer has moved through the python. That's kind of what I'm thinking, that the python's digested the deer, and now the market looks primed to start getting on the other side of this cloud. We've got, this is another signal here. This is what's called a Kumo twist, or a cloud twist. So now the cloud's going green. That is signifying that the uptrend is beginning to gain in strength, and now we're starting to just tease through this cloud. Even though we've sort of closed above it, we haven't been definitive about it yet, but to me it looks primed to pop. So when we just look at this on the big picture, I mean, there's a couple of obvious points here that we need to defeat. Apart from, of course, these tops that we're just bumping into. I'll put those aside for the moment, but just looking more at the big picture, I mean, you've obviously got, this is going to be important because that was the big spike high back at the end of December 2022. But one thing I like to do is to just track the retracements from the top. So the first thing I would do is, if I just took this, here's the low pivot, you can see here that we did reach the retracement zone here. But when I sort of go, okay, what's the next sort of retracement move? I'm bringing in here. That one didn't reach. So that one didn't reach. Go back. No. So none of these have bounced far enough to get back sort of to the retracement zone to set up, the next swing. So right now I'd be coming off the bottom, and then I would be using this high pivot. That would be my first point of call for the retracement, and then of course you can also just take the whole retracement. Okay, now what's interesting is that the 50 and the 61.8 are lining up there, so I would probably just box that out as a zone of interest. That's something to keep an eye on. And that's kind of what I'm doing. I'm just looking for these points of confluence where different sort of things overlap. Now, when I look at this, now I'd sort of, considering how many times we've bumped into the top here, I'd be kind of considering this now as my trading range. Okay, just sitting right here that we're yet to break away from. So at this point, there's probably not too much more I'd be drawing off. That's something else that's quite interesting, right? Is that the 61.8 of the whole move sort of lines up with that pivot low. So that's another area of interest. So at this point, I would probably, maybe just encapsulate that as well. It's just a bit of a range. Maybe I'll just box that out. So at this point, I've got a few things marked out here. I don't know if there's a lot more I'd take off this big chart just for the moment. I think I'll move into the daily to see if there's something a bit more workable in there. So this is kind of the daily setup, and we sort of looked at this last week. Same thing, right to the retracement zone, and you can see straight into the median line of the pitchfork, where we just then pause to catch our breath after this massive run up. So the pitchfork for me is, you can use it in the background just to give you a bit of shape and geometry, but I think for me its main function is sort of done. So, this all still looks good. We've got the nice trend going on. Okay, that looks good. So what would we want to see? Well, for me now, I'm looking for the next leg of this trend to accelerate through the trend channel. Okay, that once I get that, I would start to go into a little bit of Elliott wave mode, but until I see that, I just stick with the bare bones trend, right? And we're going up. We've held the retracement. We've had a strong move away. Everything there looks pretty good to me. But for me now, I would start to think about, okay, well, possible extensions. Where could we possibly extend to? So if I was just thinking about a 1-to-1 move, that sort of puts us there, right? 1-to-1, and what else? Well, the next sort of points that I'd be interested in would be between these fib zones, okay, and that is lining up with what we've marked off. That would be an area of interest, and then of course we've got this one here, which would also be an area of interest in terms of trying to identify potential areas of extension. Okay, not predicting that that's what's going to happen. They're more just areas where I would pay attention, because the thing is, you can be on the trend and going, yeah, I'm just going to ride the trend, and there's nothing wrong with that. I ride the trend. That 100%, that's what you should do. I just like to gather little points along the way where I just stop and think, okay, here we are. What can I see? Where am I at? Is there something on the left-hand side of the chart that alerts me that this is somewhere where I've got to pay attention to, either tighten stops, reshape plans, trim, add. Maybe it's like, if I bust through this level, I'm going to buy more. Whatever your trading plan is, I just like these little points where you can stop and think. So even looking at this on a big extension, and this is where this ties into the next theme that I'd be looking at, which of course is the idea of range expansion. So this would kind of be the range as I would see it. Okay, this is the trading range that we've been in. We've tested the top. Maybe you could even make an argument, you could tighten that up, okay, because it's kind of bottom, top. This is probably about the midpoint of the range by the look of it. Bottom, top, and now we've held. So that's why I'm sort of looking at this thing. This looks like it's ready to bust out of the range. Now, if it does, the first thing I would just be thinking, just as a reference, is I would just expand this range 100%. okay? And look where that lines up. It lines up with that box there that we were looking at in terms of a trend that has an internal retracement, goes external and extends, okay? So straight away I'm lining up with that, thinking, okay, well, just above $9, that kind of is somewhere where I'd have a bit of a look. Extend that again, and look, the 61.8%. Well, look, we've got an area here that the range isn't really cutting into that, but this is where you start to look at it on a big picture, and you go, okay, well, we've got this structure here. We've got the 61.8% retracement of the overall trend is sitting there, okay, and we've got 261.8% extension of this if it managed to get there, which would be a mighty feat. Plus, we've got 200% of the range. 200% of our initial sort of trading range lies up there. So all of a sudden you're like, well, that becomes my real thought point about what's going on. I'd just clean it up and I'd just be thinking here, that's where I just have a very good think about where we're at in terms of the progression of the trend. Maybe we're coming into the election roundabout now. I don't know if it can climb that far. Maybe it can, and that might be a time where you think, well, this is got some political angle to it. I got to think about this, because if the wrong party gets in or changes their view, we could be headed right back down. So that's something to keep an eye on. But I think these two areas look achievable, but that's where I'd be having a good hard think about my position. But look, we're down here on a 4 hour. The same thing still applies. Where are we now? I mean, we didn't get a retracement there. I'd just be tracking the top. For me, personally, I'd just be waiting for that retracement, and that would be the area where I would try to be getting. I'd be trying to get in an effort to get the stock on sale. So, the danger of doing that, of course, is that it does this and it never comes back. And, you're starting to, do this sort of thing. So that is the danger with waiting, but it just becomes about your risk profile if you're short-term trading, because like I said, I think if you're long-term trading or investing, I think you're pretty much fine. I would just not want to be in if the market broke the low, which I think is pretty obvious. But that's the danger you run waiting for the retracement. If you're short-term trading, if you're long-term trading, well, I don't think it matters, mate. I think you've got your good retracement there. That's you could just chase in, but if you're chasing in, let's get rid of that. If you're chasing in at the point where it's at now, I think that's still fine, as long as you're not trying to stop out below here or stop out below here. I'd be stopping out below there on a long-term basis. So that's where we sit with CURLF this week. So I'm just going to brush over Green Thumb as well, because this one looks even better, right? We've got a nice clean cloud break on the weekly and a retest right back to the Kijinson, and we're pushing on again. Okay, we've just got to beat this pivot up the top. That'll take the candles back green, meaning that the trend's firing up on the upside, which is kind of what we want to. Well, it's not kind of what it is. What we want to see, but look, so far so good. This one just looks super, I think, and even the way that this has just ricocheted off that pivot point, that just looks really, really good to me. Okay. So this first movement we sort of had in this trend was quite a deep retracement, and we just sort of, you can see how we just got up to this 100% of the move and just sort of stalled before we came back down. But the way that this has behaved now since we got up here and stalled looks good. So this little move that we had, I mean, we had an internal one here, but the big move up or back to just test that 50%, just touch it, ricochet away really quickly in a nice strong fashion to hit straight into the median line. Okay, that's the first box checked. So even just quickly, when you look at this internal one here, and you can see how these ones kind of overlap, right? Because when you take this, you can see how you just had roughly 100%. The one-to-one moves were roughly in this area, which is just of both. Okay, so this swing, right, that one, and also this one both had their 100% level round about the same area. So that's confluence. So taking the biggest, I mean, you could say, well, what about this? Yeah, well, that's also true. But for me, I just think on the bigger picture, I'd be more looking at this now to go external. That is what I want to see. Okay, and the telltale sign is that we touch the 50. But just keeping in mind those last examples that we looked at. Well, what are you going to do? Just to make a projection, like I said, not a prediction. I don't want to get too fancy pants and try to say that this is use this model and this will predict the future, because it's impossible to predict the future. All we do is the same thing. We create areas of interest, not predictions. We just create zones where if the market manages to get there, is there something else lining up with that to make us stop and think about our position, the current state of the market, what's the news flow like? Do we need to act? Do we need to just not do anything? Do we need to add? Whatever your plan's going to be, I just like to build these points along the way to think, okay, this is where I want to pay attention. If we start getting a move here that goes external, we start to think about extension targets, and look where some of this stuff is starting to line up. I mean, that's a little bit higher. But even looking at this, I mean, let's look at this in a slightly different fashion. Actually, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to move in closer again, because I just want to, like I said, you can do that. You can do that process yourself, but I just want to just look at what's going on here on the short term, because this is what we're kind of interested in, right? So we've got our broad trend channel, but of course it looks like now we've got potentially a quicker trend beginning to develop, because that is just so nice. So maybe we refashion this a little bit. I'd just stick with this for the moment, because like I said, what I'm looking for is the extension now through the trend channel as the trend as this overall trend accelerates. Then we go from there. Yeah, just as a word of warning, this is just the volume profile from the bottom to the close this week. Okay, so obviously you can see here that we've got a big glut of selling here that we have not. It's debatable whether or not we've beaten that yet. Okay, we've had a couple of little tests up here, but you could probably almost read this as a bit of a distribution event, I'd say, and this looks like a bit of an up thrust before the markdown, where if you break this right down into we're on a daily, you could probably come down here to a 30-minute or something, maybe find a little accumulation there. But interesting, isn't it, that the point of control lies right there, that where the most volume is being conducted. Obviously you had the chop through here, the chop through here, but the fact that it's come back and tested the structure again where the volume's been done, touched the 50 and ricocheted away, I'd sort of look at that and think that, and the fact that we just busted straight through that, it doesn't look like that they've put up much of a fight through here, does it? Not this time around. And you can kind of see this looking through the volume, right? Because you can see here this big volume day through here is what would have created probably most of this volume profile. Okay, here's another high volume day that we got right up into this zone. But the point I'm getting at here is that this time, as we've come up back through this zone, see how there's you can see down here, this is just in the way a little bit. See how this volume is low. Okay, like we've got really low volume now. So all the heavy volume selling that held the market here, well, we haven't got it this week, right? And that's why we just kind of busted through on low volume. That it's just another way to read the volume to tell you that the sellers look exhausted through here, because where are they now that we've come back up here in this motion? They're not as keen to unload. So again, this all looks pretty good. I think I could possibly be tempted to reach for the Elliott here. This looks like potentially a 1, a 2 wave, and this looks more like an internal 1 and maybe an internal 2, but I'm not going to go there yet. I don't want to disrupt my audience and get people's eyes glazing over. But look, you know, the plan for next week is it's still just the same sort of basic thing for me. I'm just waiting for any sort of pullback, just to test before we go on again. Okay, that's just what I want to see. So that would be my point of call. I mean, it's a fair way back, but you know, we wait and see. But yeah, definitely the lack of volume as we've come through that the high volume area this time around is it's a pretty good telltale sign to me. So look, this has gone a little bit longer than I wanted, so I'll just leave it there. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe, and I'll probably do another video next week. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Bye for now.